country in southern Africa. And I found out that it had the second highest per capita for HIV infection of any country in the entire world. I found out that it was in the top 5 for rape, reported rape. And now it is number 1 in the continent of Africa for murder. And it is in the top of all the countries in the world. I can't remember, I think it's number 6 or 8 for murder of all the countries in the world. So it's a tiny little country down in southern Africa. And what we found when we went there, I went with some of my friends, and then we took church missions teams. And what we found was that there's human trafficking that was happening. You guys may know that human trafficking happens in Oklahoma. It happens in Oklahoma City. It happens in Bethany. And human trafficking is human slavery, where a person is manipulated, coerced, held against their will to do a work that causes another person to financially benefit. And these little girls in Lesotho, who their parents were dying from HIV, and they were being raped, because it's kind of, cultural problem. And then they were vulnerable when someone offered them a job or said, I've got a position for you. So they would cross the border to South Africa and end up being entrapped in sex slavery. Also, child marriage is an issue. So customarily in the history of the culture of that country, as in many countries in Africa, a young girl a dowry would be paid by anybody, whether it was a 53-year-old man or whatever, for like a 15-year-old girl. And these are the girls that we help. I mean, this still happens today. It's now illegal, but these girls, go into this situation, and it's called a marriage, but it's nothing like a loving relationship. It's more of a master and a slave kind of situation. So human trafficking was not even defined as a crime in Lesotho till 2011. Beautiful Dreams Society actually started a trafficking shelter in 2011. We incorporated Oklahoma in 2010. We started a trafficking shelter in Lesotho in 2011 with all Americans who were missionaries that were going over there. Since that time, in the last 10 years, we now have 22 Basotho, that's the name of their tribe, Basotho team members, including a Basotho director and Basotho house mothers, psychologists, everybody's 22 staff members who are no Americans are there now. Our whole board of directors in Lesotho I'm the only American. And so in those years, I'll just tell you real quickly what we've done, and then I'll turn it back over to Roger. We have the only shelter for victims of human trafficking in the entire country. We've helped hundreds of women and sheltered them. We also started an orphanage because of the HIV, AIDS, to try to keep these children from being vulnerable to trafficking. So we've helped dozens of children who've come through and who still live in our houses. We also planted a church called Victory Church, and it's associated with Victory Church down the street down there. We also started an event venue, which is a profit-making endeavor, which helps to fund the nonprofit parts of our ministry. And then most recently, we started monitoring the border of Lesotho with a grant from the U.S. government to try to prevent trafficking. So we know what to look for, and we've got now, I think 8 or 9 staff members. Their full-time job is monitoring the borders of Lesotho and kind of training the actual government border officials how to look for and intercept human trafficking victims. So our most recent project is, and you saw it in the brochure, we've done all of this for 10 years without any buildings that we own. We've rented buildings and been, utilized buildings that were provided by the government. But now it's Victory Church in Oklahoma City has given us the money. We bought some land, and we're trying to build 4 homes for our orphan children and our moms, so that we can stop paying rent and have a more protected environment, because the place where we are now was recently broken into because of the crime that is horrible. We've got a place outside of town, which is in a more rural area. So anyway, that is our story. Thank you all so much for listening. And if you want to help us build those children's villages, as always, I will tell you a lot more than you want to know. And come talk to me. Let's have lunch. I'd love to get to know you if you want to know more information, and if you even want to come to Lesotho, we'll figure it out for you. Roger, thank you.
Thank you. So, Jennifer, thank you so much. And Carlton actually got us connected. I've heard so much about Jennifer and the Beautiful Dream Society over the years, and God provides connection. Amen. And it's a fact that is never to be doubted. Yeah. There's just recently got connected with also a gentleman that I've been trying to get connected with for about 4 years this last week, because I asked the right question to the right person. And if you guys know me, I have a saying that time with people is never wasted time. It doesn't matter who it is. In the real estate world, I've had deals come from meth heads to really wealthy people, to contractors, to dear friends of mine that just talk and make connections with people. And it's not always about business, but it allows me to be able to do what I'm called to do. So I really want to say thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm going to share a couple of things, but one of the main things I want to share was just, I didn't bring candy this time. I'm sorry. I forgot the candy to throw. That's one of the things I do, and they love it in Africa because they don't have like little Snickers or little, candies. So they love the chocolate, so it's really fun to do. And thank God for Halloween, because we got all the candy we needed. So I can tell you that story with what's happening in Lesotho, I got a chance to meet with some people in 2019 from Somalia. And I could only record their voices. I could not use their real names. And they told me the story of how she was a child slave, and how young girls are married off at the ages of 13, 14 years old to way older men. It's not uncommon on the continent of Africa, and I'm sure probably in Asia as well. So it's really heartbreaking because we're so separated from that. But Jennifer's absolutely right in the fact that sex trafficking happens here. People coming up through Mexico, through the border, I mean, it's a horrible situation. And it really, I really admire people that put their time and energy and efforts into doing that. So thank you for you and all the people you've been doing for over a decade. So that's pretty awesome. And there's a couple of guys here too that know Jennifer, and I really appreciate that. So one of the things I want to share with you guys tonight with my story, so I got to go to Kenya and I got to go to Cameroon. And I will tell you that I freaking hated Cameroon on my way out. I loved being there. I don't speak French. I speak more French now because I spoke zero before. So you're kind of forced into it whenever that's all they speak. And I had an opportunity to go and speak at a gala. I got to go speak to 1,000, give or take, young entrepreneurs. The average age of Cameroon is 28 years old. So I'm older than them by a decade. But there's a really cool young man there named Phi Timothy. And he comes from a background of, he's a computer engineer. And he is basically creating the Amazon of West Africa. So he is taking exactly what Jeff Bezos has done, what eBay has done, what Etsy has done, and he is creating that in West Africa because it doesn't exist. And it's unbelievable because he came from a place of adversity. He came from, so the country of Cameroon, because I love to learn things, the country of Cameroon is separated. There's 2 parts that are English speaking, and that's like coming from the hood. You're already starting at a disadvantage because nobody wants to talk to you, nobody wants to hire you if you can't speak French, because the entire continent, or the entire country speaks French. And actually that's the number 1 language spoken on the continent of Africa is French, and then Arabic, and then English. So he had an opportunity, because of his amazing gift of the saxophone, to go and play for the prime minister at his home. And because of him being the prime minister, he really took a liking to Timothy, and he gave him a chance because he saw what I saw in him. And the fact that he is a go-getter, he's a driver, he is an influencer, an impactor. And through all those things that happened, he was able to go and use his gifts that he has to be able to bypass all of that. Because for him to be able to be where he is and being able to actually do this business, he had to have favor. And now that man is not just the prime minister, but he's one of the supreme chancellors of the country. So it's president, supreme chancellors, there are 4 of them, and then prime minister. So this man has adopted him and is built into him. And whenever you, what's really crazy is that I got invited, and I missed Thanksgiving, and I'm so grateful to my wife for the grace, and my children for the grace of that. So I got invited to go and speak in Cameroon at that gala, and it was really fascinating because of all the young people. But the gentleman that spoke right after me, I got to meet and talk with him, and his name was also Roger, and he came from that region. So the north, so imagine like the northwestern part. So imagine Diamond, okay? So Diamond, just middle of nowhere. He and his wife were both attacked Sunday. Guys broke into their house, beat the wife over the head, covered him in petrol, so gas, threatened to set him on fire. And they lived in a nice neighborhood. Like they lived in like Nichols Hills, in their area of town, their area of the country. And what I love about them and sitting and having that conversation with them is that his wife still got out of the hospital and still went and ministered to a women's ministry that Wednesday night. He came and spoke that Friday night alongside me at that event. Can you guys imagine? Think about the stuff that we go through. Man, this deal didn't go through, or this frustration. And we all have our own problems. We all have our own problems. We have the frustrations of things not working out. We have the frustrations of relationship. We have the frustrations of money. All those things. But let me tell you, if you know your purpose, if you know what you're called to do, none of that matters. Roger and his bride know what they were called to do. And that's the reason why, even with all that happening, they still showed up. It's unbelievable. And he had to leave early because he didn't want to be driving at night because it triggers him for kind of being scared and concerned. So he had to leave a little bit early before it got dark. And my favorite picture of my entire trip while I was there is me getting to pray over him. Because that is a man that is an impactor, that is an influencer, speaks to hundreds of thousands of people a year. And the fact that he showed up and now he gets to use that story for the grace and for the glory of the kingdom is fantastic. So I want to encourage you guys, whenever you're feeling like, man, I just don't want to get up in the morning, I don't want to do this, and think about it. Just think about the fact that you get to wake up in America and you get to go make an impact, and you get to really love on people, and you get to use your gifts, talents, and abilities to do what you're called to do. One of the things that I really want to share with you guys is, do you know what you're doing it for? Because we have goals, we have dreams, we have all these things, but what are you doing it for? I have a young man that I know, and dude is a Bala Shakala, 20 years days on the Impala. And he is a great real estate guy. And he said, man, I got to take some time off because I have no idea what I'm doing this for. He can make money hand over fist. That's not the problem. The problem is he has no call or purpose past it. And how many of us actually know what we're called to do? Not many. We know we wake up in the morning, we know that we go to work, or we go and do our job, or we go and run our business, or whatever it is that we do, but for what purpose? To what end? Somebody told me one time, how much is enough? You know, I was on a retreat with Stephen Van Kallenberg and a bunch of real estate guys, and a lady came from Illinois as well. And I know what Stephen's goal is. Stephen's goal is to continue to build his business so that he can give $1 million to Life Church to build a building. I know a lot of other investors that they have kingdom purpose and they have kingdom missions, and they have donated to my purpose and they've donated to their own purpose. One thing I love, Tal and David helped support me to go, and thank you guys so much for helping me do that. But one thing that you guys don't know is that David has an opportunity that he's gotten to go many, many years to Taiwan, right? Taiwan. And he goes and spends a month there and doing some Jesus stuff so they can be witnessed back to Vietnam and other places. So it's, guys, there's a reason and a purpose on why we do what we do, right? We know what we're called to do with our talents and making money. Whenever I was there, so I know that money's kind of taboo here. It's like kind of not as bad. Like my parents' generation, they would never talk about money. Nope. It's my business. We're a little bit looser with that now. But there, it's a total taboo. You don't talk about money. You don't say, nope. You don't do it. So I got to talk to them about money. And I loved it. Because I asked them a couple of questions. And I said, what are you going to do if you're... So the average income in Nairobi, which is a major metropolitan city, okay? Like Oklahoma City is like nothing compared to that. Like there's like 6 million people in Nairobi. It's unbelievable. So I asked them, the average income is about $500 to $1,000 a month. Rent's really cheap. You can get a nice apartment for about $200 a month. I don't know, right? Apples and oranges, guys. But I asked them, what are you going to do? If your average income is $500, what are you going to do if you get 6? I heard everything. I'm going to go, buy this, or I'm going to get this, or I can... It was never paying off the debt. It was never paying it forward or saving it usually. And it's just one of those things. It's just a mentality. But it's, you know what? We're struggling so we don't think past the I need, right? So I shared with them that the number one thing you guys need to think about is what are you going to do with that money? And have a plan for it already. If you get that extra $100, how many of y'all have read The Richest Man of Babylon? Fantastic freaking book. If you haven't read it, you need to. Because I talk to people, I can't give $100 to this, or I can't. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, you use a percentage. Like, live off of this percentage, and you pay off this percentage. It's great. Thank you, Dave Ramsey, for stealing all those ideas. And training it around the world with your own story. Thank you, Dave. So, but they never thought about it. They never thought about the right now. 90+% of people, even in the U.S., live hand to mouth. They don't have $1,000 sitting in the bank. Isn't that weird to think about? Most of us are real estate investors in here, and most people don't have $1,000 sitting in their bank account in case something happens. It's even worse there. Salud. The second question I asked him, and I give credit to Oliver because he's the one that first asked this question, is how old is your money? And that's a really weird question. So how old is your money? Is it, I got paid Friday, it's a couple hours old, and it's gone? Or is it a week old? Or is it a couple months old? Is it generational? Do you have a plan for generational? Right? Most of us don't think about that. That question has never, ever crossed my mind. And Oliver said that. Pastor Oliver, I love that dude. And he shared that. It's like, man, that's a great question. So I want you to think about how old is your money? What's the purpose of your money? Right? One of the other things that we asked them to do was, I want you to do a couple of things. And the reason behind this story is to tell you how we figured out how to help nonprofits become self-sustaining. And it's through adversity. And I got to meet with Beatrice Williamson. She was here a couple months ago. I don't remember when she was here. But she does the Asante coffee. She's from Kenya, has the Myeshia Project, and they feed tens of thousands of kids. And their overhead is outrageous. And whenever COVID hit, they lost a ton of people. And the thing is, what people don't think about, and Jennifer, and anybody that's been out of the country and is involved with that, Sam was a missionary's kid for many, many years, so he got to see what that looks like on the ground. Most people, they just go, they do their thing, and then they leave. But let me tell you that whenever somebody says that they're going to make a payment, make a donation, and be committed to that, that child is expecting to be able to go to school. That child is just expecting to be able to eat. And here's something that's really interesting. So, government schools here, if you are living, if you are breathing, you have the right in the United States to attend a public educated school. Your books are covered, your tuition's covered, the teachers are covered. It's not that way there. There, you get a building, and then you gotta pay. Every kid, it costs anywhere from $50 to $75 per kid per semester. There's 3 semesters. And every single one of those kids are expecting to be able to go to school because somebody made an obligation to them. And one thing that just broke my heart whenever I was there is that whenever somebody does not pay and it's a kid that has to go away to school, so a lot of kids actually still do boarding school. So whenever they're sent away to boarding school and somebody says, hey, I can't pay for my kid to go to school, they go and sit outside that gate. And they're not just, they can't do anything. They're 100 miles away, like kids in Kasumu to Dallas. That's like from Springfield to Oklahoma City. That's crazy. But people don't think about it because they don't know it. And that's something that's not shared. So it's really interesting, and that's the reason why I get to share these things is because people don't know, and it's okay if they don't know. It's not their heart. But I want you to remember, if you say you're going to obligate yourself to doing something like that, just remember that you need to stick with the obligation. Because it matters. The next question that I asked them was, I want you to take an average income, and I'll give you U.S. numbers or Oklahoma numbers. So I want you to take your average income in Oklahoma. That's about $2,500. And I said, okay, I want you to double that number, right? Where are we at? 5,000. All right. I want you to take that number again. So their eyes kind of got excited. $5,000. I want you to double that number. Where are we at? 10,000. Their eyes got a little more excited. And these are in their numbers. So Kenyan shillings, it's 100 to 1 US. Okay? So eyes got really big. They're really excited. And I said, I want you to take that number, I want you to multiply it by 10. What do you think happened? They were scared. Their eyes go, ooh. Like I watched someone just scared them. I said, I want you to think about that number as a monthly income. Shoot, $10,000 to people in the States is unrealistic. $5,000 is almost unrealistic. But whenever I asked them the question to double it, they're like, I could see that. I could do some things. Whenever they just doubled that, it's like, this is not unbelievable. I don't think this could ever happen. And then whenever I asked them to 10x, I said, I want you to think about it as a lump sum of money that you have to be able to do something to change your legacy, to change things forever. So I asked them that question before lunch, and then I was quiet. And I just had them, we all had tables, we all had paper. So you guys got to sit and think about this. You have to sit and think about, what are you going to do with a business, with an investment? What are you going to do? And then they had all lunch to talk about it. And then we came back after lunch and we talked about it again a little bit and gave them another hour. I spoke to a total of around 80, 85 people, because people kind of came in and out. So we did three-day conferences there. And we had about 40 ideas. And most of them were owning a job. So, hey, if you had capital investment, I could do this and this and this, but it'd just be owning a job. So one guy cracked me up. He's like, I could copy movies. Okay. So they're like 20 years behind us, by the way. Like, Nairobi's actually pretty advanced. And they're 20 years behind. But they got cyber cafes. How cool is that, right? I remember going to those. Going playing some video game at the cyber cafe. So he told me, well, okay, so it's going to cost 800 shillings for this and 10,000 shillings for this and blah, 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 blah. So it was a total of not very much, like 1,500 bucks. But he could get a license to copy movies. And they could pay extra amount of dollars to be able to actually play music to bring people in. And then a couch for people to sit on, and then a computer to do it, and then DVDs to be able to burn. And like, so, I mean, he had a legit plan. Like, came up with a whole cool thing. But that's owning a job. So I'm not interested in you owning a job. I want to know, what are you guys creating to have long-term sustainability? And you got to put work in. So one of the things that we came across was a child feeding program. And Pastor Deacons, he came to me and said, okay, we need about $3,000 to start this thing. Okay, cool. 2,800 kids can be fed from here to eternity off an investment of $3,000. Because it creates a self-sustaining business that hires 10 people. It provides not just those 10 people with jobs, but it provides transportation. It provides the people that are providing the rice. It provides the cooks. It provides the transportation. It provides everything for $3,000. And I say, cool. You got to go to the government, get a tender, and all that stuff. So that's a contract that you have every year to do that. And I went back and I told my friend B, after we were back here in the States, like, you guys feed people. And she told me some of the struggles that they're having because people tell me things they shouldn't tell me. But whenever you're real with people, people share, right?
Yeah.
I said, B, you know, within about 2 years, we can make you guys fully self-sustaining. And it blew her mind. We had a conversation today for 2 hours. It just flew by. I even got a cool sticker on my truck that said, your time is up. And if you don't move it, you're going to get towed. So, because I only paid for an hour. But she is from there. All these guys and girls are from there, and they always think, oh man, I got to go to Europe, or I got to go to America. No, you don't. All you need is an opportunity to be able to buy fishing poles so that you can get enough fish so you can buy some nets. And after you're done buying the nets so you can catch more fish, you can own your own boat. And that's what I'm about. That's what I'm about there for Kenya. That's what I'm there about for Cameroon and any other place in the world I get to go. Because we have to ask the question, how do you become self-sustaining so that you're not relying on people in regards to the nonprofit world? Everywhere you go, there's an opportunity. Everywhere. Here in Oklahoma City, you know the reason why we got that stupid law in for the wholesaling being illegal? It's because a lot of people that were not very moral came to Oklahoma because they saw an opportunity that most of us didn't see. And they came in and they did really, really good, and then they bounced. In our own backyard. So what is it in your own backyard that you're not seeing? I tell people all the time that I've gotten to build both of my businesses purely on reputation, purely on relational. People come to me all the time, hey, I want to learn how you do what you do. I'll tell you exactly what I do, and I know you're not going to do it. Every single time. Because people wake up as a tic-tac-toe player. Wake up 15 minutes before they got to be at work. Starts out a really rough day. Why don't you think about learning to play checkers? Have a plan for the next day. And that's still, okay. I play chess. Because I can tell you that there's deals that I have made no money on. I actually still have a check for $17 that I made on a deal that I spent a lot of hours on. But anytime I need that guy, he's willing to take my phone call. I've lost money on deals because it's not about me making money. It's about making sure that my end buyer or my friend or my investor is the one that gets the best deal. What if I lose or not? But you know what? In turn, that comes back around and God blesses you. Because it's about doing the right thing. It's not about the right now. That's hand to mouth, right? So that's pretty much all that I have to share except for, I don't know if you guys saw it or not, I'm going to do a goal setting thing. So I know a lot of people like do that at the end of the year. But I'm going to do one at the end of January. And it's because I want you guys to say, all right, we're into the year. Like I said, I'm not going to go to the gym because everybody's like, hey, I'm going to go to the gym for January. And then you go after that. So it just kind of gives us a break. But one of the things I want to share with you guys is, do you have goals and things set up in your spiritual life, in your contribution, in your business, in your planning of fun and free time, in your finances, in your personal growth, in your health, and in your relationships? Because a lot of people don't think about any of those things, or maybe they only speak about one or two things. There's a really awesome dude that we all know. They're in the real estate world, and he said he and his wife kick booty on the business goals. But they don't have a lot of other things. So you need to be well-rounded. And one of the reasons behind me wanting to do this is to help serve you guys. And it's also for me as well. But one of the main things is that it helps you discover who the people are that you're hanging around. You know, you've heard, the average of the 5 people you hang around, right? I had everybody do, what is that piece of paper? It's right here. So I don't know if many of you guys know Ray Sanders or not. I love Ray Sanders. He used to be the director of a place called Water 4. They do fantastic work all around the world. But this part's mine. We have eight different areas, and you know the wheel. Everybody's probably done the wheel. If you're, we've all done the wheel, right? So, but the other part of it that we've added is that we come up with an average. And then we discover where you currently are so that we can determine on where you want to go. That's all that this does. This is not rocket science. It's not new. It's just we get to figure out what our average is so we can make sure we're hanging around the right people that we need to be around. So that's what this whole thing is about. And it's just Higher Ground has agreed to let us be there, but it's going to cost to be there, so that's the only reason why there's a cost associated with it. And then we got to buy coffee. So it's just one of those things I want to help serve you guys. We did this exercise at every single one of the retreats that we did, or the meetings that we did in Kenya, and it was so eye-opening. Because we are the average of the 5 people we hang out with, right? And I can tell you, I've had to burn some bridges. Not say goodbye, but just like, you know what? Let's do a light, a little lighter. Let that one kind of burn up slowly. But we have to be intentional. And I can tell you that if you know where you're going, you'll be able to figure out where you need to go. Because I can tell you that my purpose on this planet is, number 1, to be a husband to my wife and to be a father to my children and provide for them. After that, it's my mission that God's called me to do, which I get to make money doing real estate, and I love it. And then after that, I get to go to Africa because that's where my heart is. I want you to discover what you're called to do. Because I can tell you that there is no greater joy that I have to know exactly what I need to do for my family and then to do what I'm called to do. So with that, does anybody have any questions?
Can I grab a sheet?
Yes! I can email it to you. Or you can just come on the, whatever it is. I put it on the group. Yes.
Are you sending an invite out for the goal setting?
Yes, I did on Facebook already. It's in the group. So, but I will,
I'm fasting for Facebook.
well, I will just send it to you directly.
Thank you.
I got you. Anybody else fasting for Facebook that needs one?
I need to set a goal to do that.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to leave this right here, and then you guys can just write your name on there so it'll remind me that I need to just send you that information. Anybody else? So, one thing that is really interesting about Africa that I almost came back because I was talking about that adversity thing. And I had to remember that story about Roger because Africa doesn't lose. There's this thing called the Africa Hustle that just happens and you just feel beat up. I don't care where else in the world you go. There's nothing like the Africa Hustle. And I was so frustrated. I called Pastor Deacons and I said, dude, I am going home. I'm sick of this. I'm 4 extra days in Cameroon. I'm sick and tired of paying to be here and paying all the extras. You know what I'm saying? It's terrible. He said, dude, let me make a phone call. And he got me my visa within 10 hours, which is unbelievable, on a Saturday. Could you imagine getting a government building opening up for you to get a visa? That happened.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because that dude's actually from Illinois. But I got to meet and talk with him whenever I was there in Kenya. He's the one that told me that, Africa doesn't lose. It doesn't. Everybody's ever tried to conquer them, eventually they boot it out. But I was so frustrated, and you know what? It's because I knew the enemy was attacking, because I wouldn't have learned how to help and serve those people, and I wouldn't have learned how to help Myeshia be able to become fully self-sufficient in a short amount of time. Because the things that I learned, because I asked the questions that nobody else asks. That's why it happened. So I can tell you that whenever adversity hits you and things are frustrating, just push right through that little bit extra, because you have no idea what's going to be on the other side. So, any other questions?
So how did you find your calling? How did you discover that Africa was your heart?
So I have a 7-hour F in college.
Oh yeah.
That's right. That's actually my story of how I discovered my calling. So I was going through paramedic school, and I did clinicals out in Midwest City. I did a fire station, I think. I don't know, that's been like a long time ago.
You did ER.
And I did ER. So I did ER out in Midwest City, and that was fine. But then I say, okay, God, I'm going to go to St. Anthony's. I say, God, I want you to bring me something. St. Anthony's, if y'all don't know, it's the inner city hospital. The worst of the worst comes. So in a room about this size, a paint huffer came in, covered in gold paint, small Asian woman, and she stunk so bad. I don't deal with smells well. At all. Like right now, if I had COVID and I couldn't smell, that would have been perfect. But I said, God, I'm going to put a fleece out. I said, God, if you want me to be here, I want you to bring me the worst thing that I could possibly endure and see if I can handle it. And I threw up in the wastebasket on the walk in. Brothers and sisters, I do not do smells well. But I said, okay, thank you, God. I took that time. I'm like, all right, cool. I had an offer to go to Brazil. I went ahead and finished raising the money, and I went to go build the church in Curitiba, Brazil. And that's, I got to go to Sao Paulo, and I got to go to Curitiba. We built the church, and then went to Rio, and then back home. And during that time, I was able to walk around, look around, and see real poverty. And mind you, I grew up in South Side Oklahoma City, in Spencer, in the ghetto of Dallas. I lived everywhere. But I saw what real poverty was. And I saw what children still had a smile on their face. And they weren't worried about the newest phone. I think iPhone 1 came out that year. So I saw all those things. I said, okay, God, this is where I'm supposed to be. I've never cared about anything locally, because that's not where my call was. I tell people this all the time. I love that the church that we've attended, they have a heart for the homeless. I don't have any care, because that's not where God's called me. And that's the reason why we have nonprofits come. Because guess what? You guys may have a call. We got our good friends Brooke and Mike over here, and they got a nonprofit that they do as well, to help feed children healthy food. And that's the reason why we have people come, and that's the reason why my wife and I have a heart for that, is because I know how I found it, because I had an opportunity, I went and I took it. And I got back one day too late to be able to drop the class, and that's how I got a 7-hour F. Because I wasn't going to take the class again. Because I'm like, God, I'm done, I'm good. So I took a 7-hour F because I went to Brazil and I found my call. But taking opportunity, I think, is the number one reason. Because that's what I do. Anybody else? You got questions? I got answers.
Would you like to come to Lesotho?
Heck yeah, I'm in.
2 seconds.
I'm in. That's never a question. I'm all in. Planning on going back to Kenya a couple of times this year, just kind of depending on schedule and not whenever there's an election. So you guys think elections are bad here? Like people leave the region if you're in the minority, so they don't kill you, so you don't vote against a person. Like it's brutal, people. It's crazy. So, any other questions? These shoes came from Kenya.
I was about to say, it's the shoes for me, bro.
They are, I know.
For sure.
I had to wear a suit, so I had an excuse to wear them.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, I really appreciate everybody taking the time to be here. If you guys ever have any questions for me, I'm always available. I love to do coffee, love to do lunch. I tell people I do breakfast, lunch, and happy hour, and coffee. So, but anytime you guys want to, and I really, really, really appreciate you guys coming. And Megan, thank you so much for. She's been hurt the last couple of days, so let's give it for my wife because she's like been hurting. She showed up, and she's able to walk straight right now. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
And without her, I wouldn't be able to do it. Without the real estate world, I wouldn't be able to do it. So I'm very grateful and thankful for everybody that supports me in that. And if anybody has a real estate deal, make sure and sell it to somebody else, not me. I'm too busy. So, but I really appreciate everybody taking the time to be here. And thank you, Jennifer, for coming. I know I've been trying to get a hold of you in some way, somehow, because I keep hearing about you. I'm so thankful that you got to come and share with your vision. So, again, thank you all. We're good.